TV party tonight!
Oh, we got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Don't want to talk about anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated
To our favorite shows!
Oh, my circuits!
Everybody loves Hypnotoad.
Scary dog!
Pearson at Blurnsball.
Futurama!
Good evening. You are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting Premier Podcast TV Party tonight. I am your host, the mandated reporter and frankly unmortified Mr. Mark Radulich. And tonight, our favorite show is You. No, the TV show You, not You. I've already done this bit with John Brodigan years ago. This TV show You, formerly on Lifetime, now currently on Netflix. And we are talking season 2 tonight. And I am joined by the pitchman himself, the one who brought this to me and said, you know, he twisted my arm, he kicked mud in my eyes, he pushed me over. He actually pushed me over Pat Mullin in the process. He said, "You're doing You, sucker." There he is, Jason Teasley. How do you do, sir?
Doing well. Hope everybody had a nice holiday Thanksgiving break, and glad to be talking about, you, Mark, you, because I woof you.
I woof you too, Jason. And we also woof Pat, old sport, Pat Mullin. How do you do, sir?
I am nothing if not topical for these shows, boys.
You really are. I like that you change your gimmick up for each one of these.
Every single one, I'll find something.
All right, so we're going to be all kinds of conversational tonight. We're going to have fun. I'll set it up this way, and then we'll go where the wind takes us, boys. This season 1 ended with the return of Joe's girlfriend, who we thought was dead, who he thought was dead, and we get.
I thought she was in Italy.
Yeah,
Italy dead, the same thing. And we get some insight over the course of season 2 as to why she was believed to be dead. We also, Joe has fled New York, fled her, as a matter of fact, and gone to Los Angeles. He's got a new name, and he's starting over. He's been working in some sort of a coffee shop, bookstore, vegan thing.
I assume those are all very normal in LA.
Totally. Where he is working for and befriends a pair of twins. He ends up, they are boy and girl twins, and he is dating the girl who turns out is also a killer, and hilarity ensues. And I have to say, Jason, I loved Joe's girlfriend in this. She might be my new favorite character of this entire series. She is fantastic.
Love is an interesting character,
Yes.
especially the progression you see in season 2. She doesn't show her crazy until that last Ocean's 11 montage that she goes through that we'll talk about a little bit later. But yeah, Love is just one of those characters. She is just the entitled princess socialite that you probably see everywhere in LA. 40 is actually one of my favorite characters because he is such a dim-witted douchebag that, that is pretty much the stereotypical wannabe actor, producer, writer in Hollywood, I figure.
Yeah.
But he's got this entitlement to him because he had one hit and he's resting on the laurels of that. And he thinks he's bigger than what he actually is. He's been to rehab multiple times, but you come to find out that he's not like that for a reason because he has the golden parachute. And there was an instance in his life that really fucked him up that sent him spiraling that he's never really recovered from.
Yeah. I know, Pat, we, for those of you that are listening to this or watching, we have a group chat that all of us who broadcast together participate in and kind of talk about shows we're watching, shows we're going to review at some point. And I did my rewatch of this show about a week or so ago, and I said, hey, I'm starting season 2. And both Pat and Jason were like, oh my God, 40 is our favorite character. And I went, ugh, why? And I see it by the end of the season. I saw what they saw, but I want you to talk about it, Pat. Why do you love 40 so much?
40 is not just a character. 40 is essential as a plot device for so much of this.
Yeah.
Without him, the wheels don't turn in a lot of respects that we need them to for the narrative to continue in its way. going all the way back to his initial appearance where he goes on a drug-induced stupor at Hendy's party where Joe is clearly visible in the scene, which will catch up to us later. But 40's basic codependency in the relationship he has with his sister Love drives so much of everything.
There's a great line that resonates in my head. I actually was telling my wife about this today. That I probably got the biggest laugh out of me is when Joe's doing his voiceover narration, and he goes, "Somehow or other, I ended up in a throuple with you and your brother." I cried. I was laughing so hard.
Yeah, almost an entanglement.
Yeah,
but they do such a good job of painting 40's necessity to Joe in many respects in this show, where Joe legitimately at a certain point in time in his head falls for Love, screws up, but then realizes 40's actually on his side for this. And good Lord, I actually need you. You're actually of value to me.
Yeah.
I'm actually turning the corner on how I feel about you a little bit. And of course, 40 being 40 does things to screw that up, as you do when you are I don't know. I don't want to armchair diagnose anybody, but there's definitely a narcissistic component. There's a sociopathic component because he refuses to take responsibility for so much.
Those two swim
except
in the
for the
same
one
pool.
thing, except for the one thing he didn't do that he was led to believe he did. But maybe that's why. And just there's odd sibling relationships in a lot of the stuff we cover over varied mediums on the podcasts we do through here. This is one of the more odd, complicated ones. That was like 6 inches from like incest.
Yeah. Nothing is necessarily implied and certainly not shown.
No.
But they are, the word you're looking for is enmeshed. Love and 40 are enmeshed with each other. And the wedding or the vow renewal episode where you get a very clear picture of what this family was like and why they're as traumatized as they are. Siblings being enmeshed is a fairly common thing that happens, in like families full of trauma. Unhealthy enmeshment, which is what this absolutely is. But it's so what the strength of this season is, it's all kind of a slow burn reveal. Like, you are led to believe, Jason, that Love is fairly sane. And I have to say, and I want to go back to this, in terms of like the girl in this show, she's so much better than Beck. Like the actress was better, the character was written better, the characterization was more appealing to me. And even when she finally reveals that, oh, by the way, I'm the girl version of Joe, and I have to kill the people that are hurting us in our lives or getting in our way, she has a charisma about her where I'm like, no, Love, I see your point.
Yeah.
She won me over.
Yeah, Love is definitely leaps and bounds better than Beck.
Yeah.
Because you don't see the entitlements there, but you see it. You don't see it all the way through until the last episode when everything starts getting revealed. You actually see the codependency and of her brother, which is basically her focal point. Like, that is her being. Is you find that out because of what happens with the babysitter. She is the protector of her brother because their parents are shitty, and she feels that she has to take care of 40. And then she has that nurturing thing that drives her to want to take care of Joe and protect Joe from everything.
And it's such and I want to get to Pat because Pat was shaking his head. He wants to jump on the grenade and defend Beck, and I want him to do that. But I have to tell you, like, the first couple of episodes where Joe won't let Love in. Joe doesn't want to repeat the same things that happened in season 1, so he's kind of closed himself off. Not to mention he doesn't want to give away that he's in hiding, so he's trying to stay closed off. And Love keeps knocking down the door like the Kool-Aid man, and like, let me in, Joe. And like, a big part of the dramatic tension between the two of them is Joe going, I'm bad. I'm bad for you. I'm bad for your situation. And he's doing the same thing he does with Peck. He infantilizes her. He's like, Love, you're so perfect. You're so wonderful. And I can only ruin you. And Love's like, you realize this. It's one of those things that is, you realize it later. But what Love is saying to them, the subtext of Love's acting in those scenes is, no, I'm already ruined. I'm good. There's nothing more you can do to me that hasn't been done to me already. And I want to love you, and I want you to let me love you. And I'm mad at you because you keep throwing up walls in the way. Go ahead and finish your point, Jason, and then I want to go to Pat.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was getting ready to say, is because you see the dependency, because Joe doesn't want her, and this is where you see the entitlement, because the socialite entitlement, because she wants him and he keeps turning her down. He keeps basically friend zoning her. Even though he's having these fantasies, he doesn't want to fall into the same routine with her that he did with Beck. And that just makes her try harder. And they even get into a fight over the breakfast dinner.
It was a romantic gesture. It was a romantic gesture, and how he didn't realize when he was doing it, it was romantic. And you want to talk about sending her mixed signals. That was big time. I can see, that's the thing. When Beck would flip out at Joe, I was like, "You're an asshole." When Love does it, I'm like, "No, you're completely justified."
Right, and that builds to the reveal at the end. But that also shows that Joe doesn't have those social cues that you would typically get because he was in a group home, then he went to Moody. He doesn't have the social cues to learn that. You see that, and that's why he's so confused about. He's thinking he's doing something nice, but is actually a romantic gesture.
Go ahead,
Pat, you want to talk about, you like Beck more, so I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
I do prefer Beck of the two, and I'll tell you why. So, obviously, in hindsight, it's easier to see through the season, but there's a lot of red flags with Love that come up through the season that aren't really emphasized until we get to the end montage of the season, where you find out, oh, not only is she capable of doing bad things, she's repeatedly already done bad things.
She done killed everybody.
And is willing to continue to do more.
Right.
Now, there's degrees of entitlement between the two characters that people are constantly pointing out that parallel each other. Whereas, Love is coming from money, from very new age in terms of thought process parents and odd styles of parenting and lots of cover-ups via money and things of that nature. Beck's entitlement is more one of trying to create and cultivate a lifestyle that she wants to fit into and justifying it via means of behavior and how she treats herself or allows herself in many instances to be treated by others. Case in point, Benji, who essentially just uses her for sex, leads her to believe he cares about her, and then see you later, I'm moving on to something else with ecstasy and another girl.
Like you do.
Like you do. And she's at points willing to devalue herself in order to justify in her head that she's doing the right thing for the life she wants to have eventually.
Right.
Love kind of already has had that life at one point with her former husband before he got sick. Love has had a very privileged life and upbringing throughout where she shouldn't have to resort to these means to do these things. Whereas one of the kind of running jokes of season one is that Beck is poor and surrounds herself in this life by unsavory means many a time, where you find that her dad has to pay for her to have a dress to go to some function, all kinds of things of that nature. And by virtue of that, she is somewhat blue collar because she's constantly struggling to do what she has to do in order to get where she needs to go, even if morally it's somewhat bankrupt when she does it. However, Love, who has no knowledge of anything blue collar other than the fact she has a passion for working as a chef, but even then, the means she has taken to do that, she's not working as a short order cook in a food truck to, establish her goal.
She's not working her way up from a line cook in a fancy restaurant.
Yeah, she's in a gourmet, fancy-end supermarket / bookstore / health spa, paid for by mom and dad, franchised out, that she essentially can work in with no consequences and do whatever she wants in terms of food preparation. Not, this is the recipe, you have to follow it, this is the guideline, go on there. Like a lot of my friends who are, short line or line cooks worked as and tried to build themselves up through. I know a lot of people who work in that vein, and it is, they see a movie like Burnt with Bradley Cooper and they want to throw shoes at the TV. because of its just vastly unrealistic depiction of what a chef does in this.
Right.
Whereas this is an instance where they see a character who they've probably met at, NYIT or another, school with a culinary program, and seeing this and makes them sick, because you have somebody with every advantage leg up who does this just kind of because they like it. And it's the one thing they don't, do. And that entitlement's a little different than the other sense of entitlement that you try to convince yourself, I deserve this because bop, bop, bop. This is, I deserve this because I've always had it and I have the means to do it. So it's mine. And I'll do whatever I have to do to keep it, including murder, manipulation, snooping around, hiring, etc. Deliberately manipulating Joe in many instances before she realizes just how unhinged he is when she thinks his name is still Will Bettelheim.
Right. There were a couple of instances throughout season 2 where her thing with Joe is, without saying it outright, the subtext of her relationship to Joe is, I can pretty much tolerate any unsavory thing you've done. Like, for whatever reason, she is drawn to Joe. She is connected to him in some way, and probably by her own sociopathy. And she's decided that above all else will reconcile any nefarious thing he's done. And Joe keeps saying, no, you don't want me, I'm a murderer. You don't want me, I'm terrible. And she's going, no. All those things are fine. My problem with you is you keep lying about it. That's her sticking point. That's what I was getting to, is like, Love keeps saying, I can forgive all of this other stuff. If you had just told me you were on the run, that would have been fine. If you had told me you'd change your name, that would have been fine. If you had told me you locked people in a fishbowl, because that's really eventually murder them, that would have been fine.
That's really easy stuff to confess to, that you can just open up and tell anybody and not have to worry about what the consequences.
Yeah, I mean, that's a typical Tuesday night here at the Radulich Broadcasting Network.
Sure. So you guys keep using the word entitled with her, and I don't know how much I agree with that. I will tell you, I think her expectation that Joe would tell her day one that I'm a murderer on the run because I may or may not have accidentally killed my girlfriend who came back to life, I think is a bit much. But
remember, I never got the girl who immediately dropped Trow and screwed him in an alleyway.
Sure, and I never got the sense though, like, and we can move on after this, but this is why I liked her better than Beck. One, her characterization is just more appealing to me than Beck was. Beck rubbed me all the wrong ways, and I couldn't wait for her demise at the end of season 1.
I don't think either is likable, to be fair.
Okay. I see. The thing with it is, I enjoyed Love as a character, and again, when she's confessing all of these things, and I think it's the second to last episode, and what's great about the actress who plays Love, I'll pull her up in a second, is that performance mirrors Joe agonizingly having to explain to idiots around him why people had to die. And she does such a great job of mirroring his performance from earlier in the season or the previous season. Like, Love is the girl version of Joe, and it's fantastic. And it's not like I like Joe as a character either, but seeing Love do it and taking it that extra step of, if you'd only be my ally and tell me the truth about yourself, everything else is fine, I think is hilarious. I want to go back to 40 for a second, because I hadn't talked about him yet. 40 drove me nuts. Like, I see why you guys liked him, but that is a guy with, as Christine would say, with slappable face. And he is absolutely an agent of chaos. He is everything. Like, I can
give it up to James Scully for playing that part so well.
He does a great job of it, but like that pomposity, calling people old sport like it's 100 years ago.
Like it's Gatsby.
That kind of thing. Like I find it's hilarious, and it definitely is an entertaining aspect of the show. But as somebody you have to deal with in a real life situation, if that were the case, stuff like one of my favorite episodes of this is where he locks Joe away to script doctor his screenplay that is an adaptation of the book Beck was said to have written posthumously about her own murder, and by the psychologist or psychiatrist, whatever John Stamos was,
Dr. Nikki.
Yeah. And the whole thing of like he fakes a kidnapping, and then he has the guy scan guard so Joe can't leave, and then he gets him on mushrooms, and it's like you are just the absolute worst violating human being. But he has this weirdo like devil may care sort of charisma about him.
Douchebag savant.
Yeah, it's just he's ridiculous, but you kind of. As someone just watching the show, you kind of like the fact that you never know what asinine thing he's going to pull out of his hat next.
And you don't particularly feel sympathetic to him even when you're supposed to. Like when they do the retreat weekend with the vow renewals, and he's not only being manipulated by Candace without knowing it, just for her to be able to get back at Joe. But, the relationship with his parents, which is clearly so cold from the end of his dad, who just clearly does not like him, does not give a shit about him.
Right.
And the mother, who is on the surface overtly nurturing, but, not entirely letting him in either, because I think she knows what an idiot and a douchebag he is. And the fact that he kind of screws things up for his sister at certain points, too.
Right.
It just, even at those moments when you're supposed to be like, oh, that, you know what, I feel for him. I understand what you really don't. You don't care.
He's a man child. I don't like that about people in general. And so, like, when you guys yes, he's very entertaining. But when I take a step back and I just look at him as a person, as a character, he's this giant, arrested, developed personality man-child. He is a 7-year-old with endless amounts of money and no responsibility and no, and his relationship to others, especially Joe, is what can you do for me right now?
Take a drink, everybody, because I'm going to throw out a wrestling reference. he reminded me very much of, and we were all watching at this time, like the end of 1997, when Goldust broke up with his wife on air and kicked her out basically, and just started doing all this weird crap where he dressed like Baby New Year and dressed like his dad and did a promo as him, and Jim Ross every week on commentary, the boy who doesn't want to take any responsibility, because he was doing this overtly stupid stuff to get reactions, and he's like, oh, he's still looking for love from his daddy, and I'm like, this is reminding me of 40 a little bit.
Who doesn't show up? Being a manager of a place in a Komodo and just throwing everything in the world out there, not caring, treating employees like shit, because he thinks that since they work for him, they have to like him, and they have to be his friend and cater to him. And this is something that goes through the episode, because the other character, the side character that works at the works for 40, and just how he describes 40 is great. And then the rant that happens once they get they go on the LSD binge, and they show up, and the fight they get into, the actor portrayed the hatred that he has for 40 and putting up with 40's shit. It kind of came across, and it's like everybody feels that way, and it's like you're waiting for that the entire season.
We were all tired of 40's shit about 3 episodes before that, so
yeah, and you're just waiting for, be like, yeah, somebody just tell 40 to go fuck himself. This is great, but. Go ahead, Mark.
No. Finish your point, because I was
going to bring up something else.
All right. Well, before we move on, then let's take a quick pause for the cause to pay some bills. This was a much better written show than the first season. I think it was episode 7 where I said, "You mad geniuses, you did it. You made me love this show." And I don't remember what happened in 7, but there was something about it where I was cracking up laughing, and I was like, "Oh my god, this has now become my favorite show ever." And it was episode 7 that finally sunk me. But I'll tell you, it could have been even better if they had used Grammarly. For you listeners of the TV Party Tonight podcast on Radulich Broadcasting Network, brought to you by W2M, Grammarly is offering a free download of the Grammarly software. Grammarly's AI-powered products help people communicate more effectively. Grammarly helps you write mistake-free on Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and nearly anywhere else you write on the web. Grammarly corrects hundreds of grammar, punctuation, spelling mistakes while also catching contextual errors, improving your vocabulary, and suggesting style improvements. To download Grammarly today, go to getgrammarly.com/W2M Network. Again, that's getgrammarly.com/W2M Network to download Grammarly for free. Jason, I'm going to let you go ahead and start whatever topic you wanted to go to, but we do have to talk about Jenna Ortega, who plays Ellie Alves, which is the 15.
Yeah, that's where I was going to talk about
and her sister.
Ellie, the sister, and the Will, the real Will, the three like really supporting characters of this, because I want to get your guys' take on them, because
hang on 1 second. And then we have Carmela Zumbado, who plays Delilah Alves, who's her sister, who is also a reporter and occasionally bangs Joe. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just the supporting characters of this were much better than the first season.
Oh my God, so much better.
Like the real Will. Even though I couldn't get out of my head that,
So yeah, he's Penguin on Gotham.
Yeah, but he plays this schizophrenic junkie really well. That's a hacker, and
they all are.
Yeah, but he's a really likable character because he tries to get through to Joe and being like, "Look, I understand why you're doing what you're doing. I can help you, but you just got to let me out." And Joe is like so conflicted internally, but you finally see that he does let Will out, and Will disappears till he pops up later. And the sisters had a real nice dynamic. I think Ellie was basically a Chekhov's gun through the entire thing, because you kept waiting for something to happen with her to find out and then basically blackmail Joe.
Right. You knew at some point she was going in the fish tank.
Yeah, that's what, and they kept like leading you to that, but and you'll learn this because it's Resident Season 3 when we'll talk more about it then. There's always a child that Joe has to save. Because in the first one it was the kid, and it's always his neighbor. It's always the neighbor always has a kid that Joe has to protect or save.
Right.
And you see that resident a lot in this season with Ellie, with the trauma that her sister went through with Hindi, and the relationship that she has with her sister. And then what ultimately happens to her sister, and Joe still has to protect her.
Go ahead, Pat. Why don't you talk about if you had anything else on the real Will, aka Penguin from Gotham, or the two sisters?
So the Will Bettelheim character, a lot of people are like, oh, it showed a turning point in Joe. He actually learned. No, the guy's a cyber criminal, and Joe has infinite information on him, where if he wanted to have him caught and extradited, he could, because all he has to do is provide that to federal authorities. Let's not act like this was a kind gesture of Joe to let him out of the cage. Right. By the way, after he kept him prisoner there, withheld his medication, threatened his life, etc.
Also, Will was not an impediment to Joe getting to a girl.
No.
Which is why Benji had to go, and why What's-Her-Nuts had to go in season 1. The people that Will tends to kill are some sort of impediment to him. And in this particular case, and I don't even remember, I may have blanked out on this, like why they had a falling out to begin with, but he was in no way getting in Joe's way towards a goal of some kind.
No, Joe needed him to create this new identity for him, etc. But he felt the easier way to do it would just be to steal his existing identity and imprison him, because this guy Will also had, a lot of his fingerprints and stuff erased digitally, what have you, so he could be safe for running the business he runs.
Right.
Of course, that almost ended up costing Joe his pinky, which would piss him off even more when you find out Will's into this guy for $50,000.
That was a rough scene, by the way. Could you imagine? It's just like, hey, bud, come here. And suddenly you lose a finger and you're like, hey, how did we get here?
I don't think they would have left that one in if it was still airing on Lifetime at this point in time. I think that was an advantage of shifting to Netflix.
Yeah, which is crazy to me, because like I was reading before we went on the air tonight that Lifetime actually ordered a second season, and then, I don't know, got cold feet, saw what they saw and was like, maybe not. But they after ordering it and then deciding they didn't want it is how it ended up on Netflix.
Yeah. because they co-opted season 1 with Sundance, which then didn't have the right Lifetime had the option to renew. They chose it, but then all of a sudden backed out, and now Netflix got it and made it run.
Yep.
But going back to Will Bettelheim, I think he's played really well by Robin Lord Taylor, who I was not a fan of because I hated the entire Gotham series.
Let's be fair, he was fine on Gotham.
Didn't watch enough of it because I thought the whole series was trash. And
it is trash. No, I'm not arguing with you about that. I'm saying there were shining lights of good performances in a show that is utter garbage.
Yeah, that's fair. But again, I didn't watch enough to gauge him on that. But I did think he performed very well here. And even the callback to when they actually get in touch with him again and you find out he's living with this Filipino girl and living his best life out there, it was very odd. And I was like, so of everybody we've chosen to have a happy ending, we choose the cyber criminal. Okay, sure. We'll go with it.
Because he did not commit a sin. You must understand that the theme of this is crime and punishment and sin, and and Joe is God, and he committed no sins for God to punish. You see, in the weirdo world we're in.
After Joe had brought him up on the altar and told him to sacrifice Isaac, and he was totally willing to do so. No, but I thought his character, it's supposed to add dimension to Joe that I don't think it does. By the release and staying in touch with type thing, I just don't see it adding that they.
No, it's one of the weaknesses of the Berlanti verse where they make a decision character wise because it serves a plot. It serves as a plot device for later on, but it makes no internal consistency.
No, and now that I'm done throwing out praise to a secondary character, I hated the sisters. I hated everything about them. I hated them so much. Why? I hated Ellie. I thought she was an annoying little 15-year-old shit who, as most 15-year-olds do, think they know better than everything, etc. Okay. But I really rooted for bad things to happen to her because she was just so willing to believe that everybody around her is an idiot except for her.
But that is the platform for which teenagers stand upon is they think they're the smartest people in the room and they know everything, and then life has to humble them.
But
like the Iron Cheek.
But that's much more encouraged now as opposed to being frowned upon for decades, which worked to keep kids out of trouble. Now they're telling these teenagers, go be free, do this crap, and watch what happens. She repeatedly disregards the warnings of her older sister, just out of spite, who has already been through this situation with this guy already. And for that matter, Delilah, who is just so anti-man because of her experience.
Right.
You can sympathize and empathize with people who've been through trauma when that trauma turns them into an absolute, I hate everything about this entire thing and they all must burn, etc. You lose me and I don't care a thing about you. I just find you annoying.
In defense of the teenage girl, one, her writing, her characterization is in line with girls who would be in that situation for the most part. And two, it's not like any of that behavior made her better off by the end of season 2 than where she started. By the end of season 2, she's like in foster care and her sister's dead, and she's worse off for having known all these people and behaving the way she does than when she started. So I can't find fault with that. If she needled you and rubbed you in particular the wrong way, I can't argue with that. That's a subjective thing. But I would be more aggravated if her performance and characterization was not believable, which I believe it is.
Which is fair, but and back to Delilah now.
Yep.
Because she was hurt by this jerk off, this Hendy, and then decides that all men are scum, etc. Are you mansplaining to me?
I love that line. Are you both mansplaining and there was something else, another ridiculous
and patronizing? I believe it was
patronizing.
Yeah. Are you mansplaining and patronizing me? I again guffawed.
And at that point, like if he bashed her head into the wall, I wouldn't have shed a tear. Patronize that. Let me mansplain how to get bloodstains out of a wall. That'll get us some viewers.
And the number to the feminist
peroxide. Peroxide is the key.
She gets into this pretty much just sexual nature relationship with Joe, but there starts to be this kind of back and forth where, I'm going to buy you, this, and we're going to have burgers and have a bonding moment, but I'm still going to act like a bitch to you throughout, which is like, you know what, cut the shit, like enough. So instead we get the idea, and I've seen this floated around on like Reddit and stuff, where like, oh no, they were hate fucking each other. Let me explain to you a little bit about hate fucking. Okay, nobody wins.
Yeah,
nobody, because if you're the guy, you're now hate fucking. You think it's only good for you. It's not. She's getting something out of you too.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're the woman, I'm not advocating double standards. I'm just telling you how things have been for forever. You're giving it up. You're letting him in to you, to something he probably wants a lot more than you want, and you're willfully giving that to him. You're not getting any. You may think somewhere deludedly you're getting satisfaction out of that. No, he's the one who's getting satisfaction out of that.
But see, I wouldn't even agree with the term hate fucking. I think that's a very specific thing that isn't happening here. I think she genuinely liked Joe, and I think Joe genuinely liked her. But I think two things about her. One, she's not into settling with a guy. Plus, she seems to value a lot of modern independent woman tropes and characterizations.
There's nothing wrong with an independent woman. There's something wrong with a woman who thinks everything man is wrong.
And look, and that's fine. And I'm not even arguing that point with you. My point is, I think she was happy enough to sleep with him, and she was happy enough to be friends. But trauma, modern women trope, whatever the situation is, that was as far as it was going to go. And Joe, being halfway developmentally disabled, doesn't read the signs very well, and makes the wrong moves. And then, of course, she reacts bitchy, which I can see the bitchy reactions driving you a little nuts. But again, I didn't hate her. I just didn't. I liked her. First of all, the actress is hot as shit.
Yes.
I think we can all agree on that. She is a very attractive gal.
I would definitely call her the most attractive main female character in the series by a mile.
Yeah, I don't think Love's unattractive either, but
till season 3.
But okay, but I think
with it.
But I think she's definitely more attractive than Love, Carmela Zumbado. In any case, she didn't bother me. I may not always agree with the characters, with the way they present themselves or whatever, but she didn't ring false, and she didn't come across as so unlikable. Like the most unlikable person I've seen in this series so far has been Beck and her friends, and she wasn't anywhere near those people. Yeah,
but here's the thing, though. Again, going back to the trauma portion of it, which you would normally empathize and understand with.
Sure.
That causes her to just be shitty to Fincher from the get-go with no reason.
Mm-hmm.
Be shitty to Joe for no reason initially.
So I'll go with you here, Pat. I think that might be the issue between you and I is I tend to be overly empathetic. That's partially professionally. That's partially by my nature. And maybe that's the divide here is I'm overly empathizing with her. You think?
Yeah. On your end, yes. Or maybe I'm just overly being like, enough's enough. Cut the shit. Like just because you got hurt doesn't mean everybody else needs to get hurt.
That's fair. Jason, you want to come back in here and talk about Delilah?
The only thing that I had a problem with Delilah is the whole subplot with the cop could have totally been written out and it not changed anything. He added and subtracted really nothing.
Fincher's another Chekhov's gun.
He adds to the dramatic tension of the last 2 or 3 episodes. There needs to be obstacles for these people to deal with.
Yeah, I'm just saying the relationship that he had with her didn't need to be there.
Sure.
Because, I mean, he really served no purpose. The only thing that the purpose he served is toward the end is that he knew the relationship with Delilah and her sister. And that was the only thing that he really contributed. Outside of that, it didn't. Now, I think that the fact that the way she was acting was she was so fucked up and everything because of one, what did happen to her, and two, being a journalist in LA, you see and fucked up shit all the time, and that kind of makes you jaded. So you kind of misdirect your shit toward people because you don't know how to compartmentalize everything, and you just lash out once somebody starts getting close to you. And I think that's a lot of what what they was trying to do with her. They didn't do it effectively. But I think that's the route they was going to her. She was this damaged, broken person due to her past trauma with Hindi and everything. And she's trying to be overprotective of her sister, who gives no fucks about anything she has to say.
Were we not all assholes to one degree or another at the age of 15?
Right. I've got a 14-year-old daughter that's a complete asshole. Of course, she has my personality, so that may explain some things. But they tried to write her in that thing, but I don't think that they did it effectively, and that's one issue I had. I liked her as a character, but I don't like the half-ass trauma that they tried to project on her to why she hates everybody. And every time she starts getting close to somebody and lets her guard down, she starts being a bitchy asshole to push them away and raise that wall back up so nobody can get close to her, including her sister.
All right. Last thing I want to talk about before we just touch on the ending and then close out for the night. We haven't talked about Candace yet. So Joe and her went out to the woods to live deliberately. She got pushed. She fell down. He thought she died. And then he buried her in a shallow grave. And like Jason or the Undertaker, she erupted from the earth. And she confronted Joe in New York and said, you did things to me, and I will not be treated in such ways, and I will make you pay for it. I have this long, elaborate Batman-esque plot that I'm developing to get back at you. And Joe says, or I'll just leave. It's fine. And off he goes that way. And then she tracks him down finally, and she inserts herself into 40's life in order to get to Joe, in order to disrupt his life. She tells Love that, hey, he's not who you think he is, blah, blah, yakety schmackety. Little does she know that Love don't care. Love don't give a hoot. And she ends up getting killed by Love in the end. Let me tell you how I saw her necessity, Pat, to be an obstacle for Joe. You know, this thing lives and breathes. The life's blood of this show is people coming in and out of it that are obstacles for these characters, like any good soapy drama. And so her being there, I thought, provided enough dramatic tension and conflict to make the show really fun. The actress is fine. The character, I'm not unhappy. Love slit her throat in the end. I was not. Oh no, not Candace. Like when Love killed her, I was like, yeah, that's about right. What did you think, Pat?
Well, this is how you know a man's probably doing most of the writing, because they take this character who initially has every justifiable right to try to get out there and get revenge and ruin what this guy has going on, and nobody wants to see that. We're all just rooting against her.
Right.
Like I saw her, and in my head I kept hearing Expose, I'll Never Get Over You, Getting Over Me playing while she would make appearances, which is funny because I listened to it on this great streaming service that Mark could probably tell you a little bit more about.
I can. As a matter of fact. What was that that you heard? Expose again?
Yeah, it was I'll Never Get Over You, Getting Over Me by Expose.
Well, if you would like to, if you've never heard of Expose, you can use our service that we're giving away here at getamazonmusic.com/W2M network. A link in our description for a 30-day trial of the Amazon Music Unlimited service. You can listen to all the Expose for a month, don't pay for any of it. And if you like Expose, you can keep on listening. You can retain the service. You pay the monthly fee like you do with Spotify or Apple Music, or you can cancel it with no fuss or no muss. But it's great. It's a great way to do like Pat suggested, and just get on Amazon and check out all the Expose music you can find, and it's all there for you. Over 70 million songs. Go on with what you're saying, Pat. So
yeah, again, if there's any character in the entire series with justifiable emotions to try to accomplish their task, it's Candace.
Yeah, sure.
Because regardless of the nature of how they broke up, her goal was to become something in the music industry, and Joe was extremely paranoidly jealous of her interactions with other people, particularly men. Because he's thinking she's stepping out on him in order to further her career. Whether she was or wasn't, hey,
she was.
Well, no means no, and if she wants to leave, she should be able to leave. Look, everything, including leaving her for dead, Joe is dead wrong.
Yes, And again, if she did choose to step out on him, nobody's telling you got to stay.
Right.
Okay, you did that to me. That sucks. I'm either going to forgive you somehow and we're going to get past this, or I'm going to just say the hell with you and I'm going to leave because you burn me and I ain't getting over that.
The Mike Tyson approach to fixing your relationship is not effective or called for.
The part where they split up but they're still banging and then he scares off Brad Pitt, or
no, I was gonna say I was trying not to curse, but Jason's already done that. So no, I'm gonna fuck you till you do I make you love me is not an effective way to repair your relationship.
Not usually. No. It usually works about as well as burying someone alive in the woods
and pretending and hopefully they're dead.
But don't bury people alive in the woods. You take them to the water and you make sure they're weighed down
and puncture the lungs.
Or as we find out in The Wire, the Bay will spit them right back out again.
Yeah.
Mark it on your bingo cards, everyone.
So anyway, again, the most justified character in their motives is Candace. She's trying to avenge getting buried alive by this guy who assaulted her in the woods, that she was going to leave for her career.
Right.
And instead, she wound up with a mouthful of foliage and dirt and very uncomfortable crevices.
Greg Berlanti typically writes very strong women. It is very odd that he would write a character so detestable that you're okay with her being buried alive and then later stabbed.
Something's telling me Berlanti knows a little bit more about the situation than we would like to believe, because this is very far off from writing somebody like a Sarah Lance or
We should have him on here. Greg, show us where the girl hurt you.
Greg, where's the body? Just but yeah. So, but they just they just really make her so detestable because she's gone from, instead of just this person who has every right to seek revenge, she's just decided to manipulate and destroy as many lives as it takes just to justify messing with Joe, which is where you lose her.
At the point where she's going to love, he's a murderer and I have the proof and here it is. And at that point, it's on Love to decide what to do with that information. At that point, Candace goes, I have done my bit for God and country. I have gotten revenge. I'm going to go away now. When Love goes, meh, who hasn't murdered a guy, or a woman here or there in their life? And Candace goes, and at which point Candace just unravels and it's like, why won't you do anything about this? Why won't you listen to me? And that is where I think as an audience member, you're supposed to turn on her.
That's the breaking point. It was the downward spiral started all the way back at the police station when they're basically telling her, hey, you have no evidence of any of this. We're not going to be able to do anything.
Right.
And how do
you feel in that situation, Jason? You're buried alive, and you're like, do you have any of the dirt still on you? I mean,
can we sample the soil? We need a soil sample to find out where you are buried.
There is no justice in the world where a man buries you alive, and that's not enough to get at least an arrest warrant.
Have you not watched? Not watched WWE? It happens all the time. The Undertaker and Kane bury each other alive quite often.
And every week on AEW, there's a kidnapping. I'm sorry, Pat, I cut you off.
No, but again, this downward psychosis where it's the circumstances that manipulate her into this situation. And she finally has this last gasp of rationality where she's going to try to not only ruin Joe, but save, in her mind, this girl Love from potentially the same fate she had. And Love is just like, no, I'm good.
I don't need saving. Leave me alone.
I'm perfectly fine. And at that point, we should all be going, you know what? Go get her, Candace. Go get him. Take out everybody. But she's written to be so detestable and unlikable. And Joe is written to be so sympathetic and you want to root for him that it completely flips the logic narrative on its head. And again, if I'm a woman, I'm probably highly offended at this portrayal because...
No, I know a lot of women who hate other women.
No, I'm not talking about that part of it. I think all women hate other women secretly, or not so secretly.
Yeah.
But more the case of everything that has been wrongfully done to this girl, she has every right to feel the way she feels and acts the way she acts, and she's just written to be so awful and dismissive that nobody roots for her.
Right. Jason, you want to add anything on Candace? If not, I want to touch on the ending, and then we'll get out of here.
Well, I mean, the only thing that I have to add on Candace is the fact that when she does bring it up to Love, and, she's given Love all this evidence and everything, and it's like the way she's written is the reason why she's doing it is because she's the jealous ex.
Yeah.
Like they're trying to make you believe the narrative that she's doing this to Love, and how she portrayed it to Love is that she wants Joe back rather than trying to save her. And I think, like you said, that's where it kind of starts turning, and you start seeing it like, okay, then she still hangs around a little bit because, you know, she still has the booty call with 40. You know, they still keep her in the narrative, like in the background and references and everything until the end. So rather than just, okay, look, I said my piece, I'm out.
Yeah.
They still let her linger around, which kind of makes it justifiable for Love to be like she's the clingy ex that doesn't want to let go. So, and that's the only thing that I have to say about Candace that you guys haven't already covered.
So Love nearly gets killed by Joe, but then she says, "Hey, don't kill me. I'm having your baby," like you do. Propelling this into like telenovela instead of just your regular American soapy drama. So there's that. 40, I believe, gets shot by the cop.
Yes.
And then they move, you know, and then we flash forward. She is several months pregnant. The mom is in their life, and Joe is hanging out in the backyard, and he's reading a book, and you're like, okay, the story is told. You know, everything has been cleaned up. All the people that need to die are dead, and Joe can just move forward with his life. And Joe, like a nut job, sees a girl in the crack of a fence, like Wilson from Home Alone, and
Home Improvement.
So close. And he's like, I see you, you know, in his pervy Gossip Girl voice. I see you with your books and your sun hat, and I'm gonna save you from yourself, whatever the hell stupid shit he says. And I'm like, come on, man. Like, it's a great stinger for season 3, but was not two crazy people raising a baby enough? Did we have to also go into now Joe wants to fuck the neighbor who's fit? Like, what if she takes off her hat and it's Skeletor? He doesn't know. He saw a pile of books and a sun hat and in relative proximity to his penis. That was it. That was all it took for him to be attracted to a Pat. I don't understand it. It drove me crazy.
Nobody's accused Joe of being the most sane and rational thinker during this whole course of action, has they?
I suppose.
Yeah. So again, and even towards the end of things, when he's ready to murder Love for everything she's put him through, and his last straw being the murder of Delilah, that he had thought he was culpable for, and then found out, no, it was Love, and she's telling me all this. And I think he even is mad that she murdered Candace to a certain extent.
Right.
But
well, everyone's muscling in on his gimmick.
Yeah. Well, you know, gimmick infringement's a real thing.
Yeah.
So it's like he's just done with this. You're not who I thought you were. Yes, you're more like me, but I hate me, so I don't want this. I'm gonna kill you. No, I'm pregnant. And then he's gonna, you know, he's got this rock to hang on to, which is his little girl, or so he thinks. And you know, he's gonna do this all for the kid. And then, oh wait, you're attractive. You like Tolstoy. You have a sun hat. Hey,
I have a penis. Let's do this.
Gosh, between the developmental disorder and the ADHD, Joe is quite the catch. Jason, go ahead and talk about the ending and then take me home, baby doll.
The ending was really fucked up because, you know, who doesn't think of, you know, a girl getting pregnant to save a relationship? That's worked out so many times before, as everyone knows. I mean, that's pretty much a go-to trope.
I was going to say it's a bit of a trigger for you, isn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, but it's one of those things that you see it and the way they done it, because this happens, then they go to the wedding, and then you see the end, which is where 40 loses his shit, and because 40 went and spoke to John Stamos. And so 40 knows everything and knows how everything.
40 the only one to put this all together, by the way?
Well, I have a better question. Even when they dirty Stamos up and make him look prison, like prison worn, John Stamos still sexiest man on earth. Yep,
next to Ryan Reynolds. Next to Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds is a talky bitch. John Stamos for life.
All right, Lobster. Loki. Anyway, but But then it brings it back to 40. 40 has
So,
been so
low-key.
fucking off. I seen that. Been so far off the reservation, even though that he's bringing in these facts, nobody believes him because he seems so unhinged.
Yeah.
And that's the narrative Joe presents to Ellie. It's like, he's high, he's off his rocker. That's what they present when he shows up at the wedding, trying to get a hold of Love, because Love already knows they're going. And it's just one of those things that it's weird because 40, the idiot savant of meth and privilege, actually brings up and has figured everything out and is the rational voice at the end of the series. And when he gets shot, it's framed as he's trying to murder Joe. No questions asked. He's got a gun to Joe's head. No explanation. Gun on Joe. He gets shot. Lobster. And then you just fast forward after that. And it's like, there's some repercussions coming out of this. And they gloss over it as, the parents own the LAPD and there's never going to be an investigation, so we don't have nothing to worry about. And it's like, you don't just gloss over that. But as far as the whole sundress thing and everything, season 3 was interesting. And we'll be talking about that in the near future.
January 2nd is when we will come back together again and finish off You season. All the seasons at this point, we will talk about You season 3 on January 2nd, and then we can wait patiently for season 4, which I assumed it was renewed for. I haven't looked.
Yes.
It hasn't been renewed. All right. So that is it. That is our review of You season 2. You mad geniuses. You made me like this pulpy garbage. This is fun though. I've enjoyed talking about this, and I look forward to seeing what craziness there is with the baby in season 3. That I think when you were telling me about this, you're like, oh my god, the baby in season 3. I can't wait for you to watch this. So God only knows what happens with Sun Hat Girl and Tolstoy and the baby and all kinds of nonsense. In the meantime, in between time, here's what we got going on this week. Tomorrow we'll have myself and Robert Winfrey and Alexis Haina reviewing Encanto with music and lyrics by Lin-Manuel Miranda. This is the new Disney musical that came out over Thanksgiving weekend. Myself and Jason Teasley and Robert Winfrey will be reviewing Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. Spoilers, it sucked.
It's bad.
It sucked.
It's
bad. Wednesday, myself and Robert Winfrey will be doing a triple feature that is MMA focused. We'll be reviewing Bruised, which is currently on Netflix with Halle Berry, Born a Champion, which came out the first quarter of this year, and Warrior, which came out almost a decade ago. So we'll do that. And then Thursday, myself and Alexis Haina are going to review Animaniacs Season 2, and myself and Ronnie Adams will be reviewing the one and only season of Y: The Last Man. And you might be asking yourself, why The Last Man? And I will tell you, because it sucked. That's why. On Friday, we are re-airing 2 Volbeat reviews that we did, and that's because Volbeat Servant of the Mind is coming out. So we've got Rewind, Rebound, Replay, and Rebound, which drove Jesse into the woods to live deliberately. And then we also have, from a few years back, Seal the Deal and Let's Boogie, which was decidedly a lot better. And then Saturday, finally, Chris Bailey. Jesse Starcher had Al Sedano on the Source Material podcast. They did Stars in Stripe Volume 2, featuring your favorite superhero in mind, Stargirl, currently having a show on the CW. Check out our triple feature featuring Elizabeth Faust, where we talk 3 musicals. Tick, Tick, Boom. Everyone's talking about Jamie and Diana the musical. Our reviews of Resident Evil, The Final Chapter, Ghostbusters Afterlife, Black Friday. My son and I did one for Clifford, Home Sweet Home Alone, and 8-Bit Christmas. He did a really good job for a 7-year-old boy. Over the weekend, myself and Jesse did a live stream of Clutch Live from the Doom Saloon Volume 4, and myself and Robert Winfrey did a live stream for Teofimo Lopez being upset by Australian George Kambosos Jr., who is on his way for a unification fight with Devin Haney. All right, Pat, you want to pitch anything real quick?
Upcoming in January, myself and Mark will be revisiting our Four Kings of Boxing podcast after much debate. We'll be taking a look at the first ever meeting between Thomas the Hitman Hearns and Sugar Ray Leonard to unify the welterweight championships. Took place in April of 1981. Tremendous fight, tremendous build, everything looking good. You'll also hear us on the Mania of WrestleMania podcast between myself, Mark, and Chris Bailey. You'll be hearing the next episode, which covers WrestleMania 11, 12, and 13, which is a transition into the Attitude Era out of the new generation with a lot of lows and a couple highs. But the Titanic is sinking, and we're going to get to our dinner and go from there.
That Leonard versus Hearns show will actually be December 9th. And
keep thinking it's December now. What do I know?
December 9th. Yeah. So in 2 weeks, we'll be doing that next Four Kings of Boxing. And then that Mania of WrestleMania will be December 15th. It'll be just me and Pat, unless, of course, Chris Bailey can get from under the thumb of the customers during the holiday season. Jason Teasley's on a shit ton of stuff with me over the next couple of weeks. But he can also tell you about his fantasy football podcast.
Yeah, you can find me on Second and Short on all your podcasting platforms. We do daily TikToks. We got Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Look us up there. Always like, subscribe, comment on any content we put out. Like Mark said, I'm in kind of the doghouse for Tuesday night for pushing to watch Resident Evil, and now I'm kind of worried that Winfrey is no longer my friend. Due to making him sit through this god-awful movie. Then we got some triple features coming up in the distant future.
2 weeks, we've got, it'll be
King Richard.
Yeah, it'll be December 6th. It'll be King Richard, The Guilty, and Night Teeth, featuring my new favorite female actress, Debbie Ryan.
Yeah, so I'll be watching that. Going over that, watching that this week in preparation of that. I'm really looking forward to it. I really wasn't sold on the King Richard movie, but it's kind of grown on me. I've heard some things about it that kind of piqued my intrigue. So because he was not a good individual, so I'm kind of wondering how they spun this with Will Smith in the title role, being the father of Venus and Serena Williams. So definitely looking forward to that. But most notably, please stick around for our February reviews when me and Mark dive deep into the lore of the great movies that we love, the B movies, and stuff that Robert Winfrey won't review with Mark.
We have 9 or so movies set up across 3 different triple features that celebrate the length and breadth of Black culture for Black History Month. I will tell you some of those feature Pam Grier, and another one is Pootie Tang, and others were directed by Spike. Maybe
Ladies Land,
and the others were directed by Spike Lee. So yes. So yes, Black History Month here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network, featuring myself and Jason Teasley. It's going to be fantastic. All right, folks. Thanks for listening to our review of You Season 2. For Pat Mullin, Jason Teasley, I'm Mark Radulich. Be well, be safe, and behave.